And we're back, and welcome to Essential Dynamics, another podcast episode. I'm your host, Reed McCollum. Well, your guest host now, because I've wanted to talk to the regular host, Mr. Derek Hudson, about some things that he's learned this year in Essential Dynamics. So I have returned to the microphone to find out a little bit more. Derek, are you there?
Hey, Reed, thanks for stepping in and taking over so adeptly. I'm happy to be at your service today on the Essential Dynamics podcast.
Yes, I am. I'm looking forward to it because we have a lot to discuss. First of all, I've been following your season this year, and you've talked to a lot of very interesting people, and I want to know what you've learned in general. What do you think you've had this year that stands out as particular lessons of Essential Dynamics, and for you?
Well, one of the things that I really want to talk about today is how you go from perhaps being stuck to moving forward along the lines of all kinds of interesting things that our guests have shared. And like most recently, Marvin Washington was on, and he talked about having a life plan. A few episodes before that, my partner Ann McTaggart and I talked about an organization have a business model, which is really like a life plan for your business. And when you have those things, you have the ability to look at your business and see how you're doing. But a lot of times we don't think of things that way. We just, we get up and we go and we do stuff every day, and we get into the thick of it. And from time to time, we might have some unsettling feelings like, there might be something more to this. There might be a different approach.
Is that what you mean by being stuck?
Yeah, I think so. Now, if you go back, way back, my consulting practice, I call it Unconstrained now. Originally, when I started it years ago, it was Unconstrained CFO. And I find it very interesting that 13 years after I started my business, the consultancy called Unconstrained helps people get unconstrained, helps people get unstuck. And so one of the ways to start that process, I guess, is to say, well, what is being stuck, and how does it feel?
What is being stuck? How does it feel? I'm talking from a business perspective.
Yeah. So I think one of the ways to look at it is that if you're a leader in an organization, your job typically isn't to just do the work. It's to solve the problems, they get in the way of other people doing the work. And
okay.
when you're good at that, then you solve problems. You can solve easy problems. You can solve hard problems, but you get to the point where there are problems that you can't solve. And then that's kind of where you stay, because the easy ones come and go, and the hard ones are persistent. They stay with you. Sometimes that's because you can't see them. And so you might kind of stall out and not recognize that there's a higher level problem that you could take on if you appreciated what it was.
We often say, consider your quest on this show, or at least we have since the beginning. And I'm wondering if that is also a gate to understanding what the main problems are. I wonder if we're always on the same page, especially in business. What if you come up with a disagreement? What if your employees do not see the same quest you do?
Okay, so Reed, I have this cheat sheet in front of me of the top 10 ways we can feel stuck.
Yes,
and I don't want to be really structured today, but that's on the list.
Okay, good.
It is that we don't agree on the problem or we don't agree on the purpose.
How
Right?
do you get agreement?
How do you get agreement?
How do you get agreement between two people, let alone 10, 15?
Well, I would say that however you do it, and it's not easy, there is so much power in aligning everyone's efforts to the purpose, or as we describe sometimes, purpose X and purpose Y. If you get all that out there, then a lot of other stuff can get taken care of. But if you're not in agreement on the purpose, then you, like by definition, you're stuck.
Okay, so that's a core problem.
So that's something that you definitely want to take on. And so what happens with organizations is over time, they may drift from their original purpose, or the environment may change and the original purpose may be less relevant. But organizations have ways of self-sustaining. Like, they just keep going. And so you go and you go and you go, and things are done out of habit. And then at some point you realize, just a second here, why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so consider your quest is a great way of saying, just a second here, if we're doing something hard, it must be something that's epic. It's for a purpose. And so what's that purpose? And can we restate or rediscover that purpose? The other thing, while we're on the topic of purpose, and I put it down as a separate thing, is that we might be clear on one purpose, but we have that second purpose, that complementary purpose, the purpose Y to the purpose X, that's not been explored or not been stated. And
why is that? Why is it so often unspoken?
Well, I think for a few reasons. One is that we're kind of conditioned that, an organization should have a mission. Mm-hmm. And so there's one purpose. And, what I've discovered in thinking about essential dynamics is the real challenge is when you have complementary purposes that you can't accomplish at the same time, but you have to accomplish both of them. And there's a lot of creative tension there that can create an awesome business or an awesome organization. Well, the one that I've referred to a number of times on the podcast is just a conversation I had with my daughter when she was a young university student. And she told me that I wasn't a good parent. She didn't say that. What she said was that she thought as a child that my job as a parent was to help her be happy. Uh-huh. And she didn't think I did that good of a job, mostly because we had rules and she had to do chores. Mm-hmm. But she said she realized later on as a young university student that my purpose was, or our purpose, Tamara and I, our purpose was that she'd be happy as an adult. And she didn't think we had done a bad job at that. It just wasn't fun to be a child who was preparing to be an adult, I guess. Fair enough, because adulting is, it's hard. Yeah. So if you have, at the same time, you're trying to accomplish, reinforce the child, support the child, love the child in the moment, and put the child through hard experiences and teach them discipline so they can be productive as an adult. That's being a great parent, but it's not that easy. And the same in a business. Like I was thinking about two examples that I can think of, organizations that I've been involved with. And it's interesting that both were not-for-profit organizations. Okay. And they were large, like hundreds of employees. And one of them was a not-for-profit business that didn't appreciate that it was a business.
Wow.
And so
what
they kind of
think it was. If you've got employees, what do you think you are?
Well, but they thought that they were this, sort of gift to the world.
Oh.
And that the business would take care of itself if they just stuck to the altruistic mission that they had. And it was a good mission. The other organization was a not-for-profit that focused on the business and forgot the mission. And so then, as a business, you're looking for revenue here, you're looking for revenue there. And they lost their way. As a result, and that organization no longer exists. Yeah. But you have to have both of those. And if you're a for-profit organization, so yes, you're a business. Yes, you need to make money. But if you don't have a soul, right? If there's not some purpose you can rally employees behind, then you're buying people's time and attention in a series of transactions that it's going to be exhausting to keep up on. Whereas you and I have both been involved in organizations and projects where people are in it for the purpose, and the rest of it just kind of takes care of itself, right?
Yes.
So there's a bunch of stuff around being stuck that relates to being unclear about a purpose, being unclear about, your complementary purpose. And the interesting thing about that is, if you think about it, unless you can define what you're trying to do, then you can't say you're having progress. So you must be stuck.
Yeah.
Because you can only progress
Derek,
towards some kind of goal.
Derek, how do you know you're stuck? Some organizations that I'm thinking of in my head are, or even my career, I feel like I didn't know I was stuck for years. And I only in retrospect do I go back and go, oh, I should have moved on earlier. Because I was just making things do. Every day was to get through the day. And there are organizations like that all over the place that don't know that you can be stuck for years. And
you absolutely could. And there's kind of two of the things on my list that fit that. They're kind of opposites, which is appropriate for Essential Dynamics, right? Because we deal with dynamic forces a lot. So one of them is that we're in this kind of codependent, dysfunctional situation where the negative stuff is self-reinforcing. And I had a conversation, and there's probably 2 or maybe 3 conversations I've had in the past while where I've had someone, kind of unload, maybe vent, maybe complain. You could use those words about how bad things were in their organization. And in at least one particular case, the person who was telling me this was the owner.
Oh my.
Okay. And this wasn't going right with their employees, and this wasn't going right. And it's a safe space. You're meeting with an unconstrained guide. We're having this conversation. It's an appropriate conversation. But I said at one point, well, if it's so bad, why do you put up with it?
And it's momentum, isn't it?
You're the owner. You don't have to have those employees. You don't have to have those customers. You don't have to do, you can choose. There's a lot of choices you have. And somehow our focus kind of narrows. And like you say, you get up every day and you do the thing that's in front of you that day. And then at the end of the day, you're not happy. So there's this negative loop that we get in, and we can't see a way out of it.
But don't a lot of people, and I mean millions upon millions of people, get used to the bad day, get used to being stuck, and have no faith that whatever is different will be better.
Hey, Reed, there's so much in what you said there. And we keep bouncing back and forth between the personal and the business, and that's totally appropriate for this conversation. But I'm going to go back to the business. I have said that the 3 underlying principles, of Essential Dynamics are natural law, agency, and abundance. And it's about episode 25 or something like that. It's a while back there, but by natural law, I mean that there's cause and effect. And that if you can understand natural laws, you can invoke an effect by figuring out what thing causes it. And it's consistent somehow.
Yes. Okay.
The second thing is agency, that we can then make a choice. And we can do this thing or we can do that thing. And the third thing is abundance, which is the idea that your choices could make things better. And so we don't have to put up with situations that are negative, but we get used to it. And so I'm going to bounce to another thing that I wrote down, is that the solution is hard. We're stuck because the solution is hard. I was in a conversation with someone. Again, I was hearing about the bad things that were going on in the organization. I said, well, what do you think should be done? There was a pretty clear answer. And it's like, well, why don't you do that? And the answer was, because it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you've just told me how hard your life is.
Right. Don't you want to go through it? Yeah.
Yeah. I have a story about that. And I don't know if I've shared on the podcast. I might have. I've shared the story recently. So last summer I was mountain climbing. So,
yes.
So this is we're on a scramble. So this is non-technical. So we don't have climbing equipment. We don't have harnesses. We don't have ropes. We don't need them. But I had this really unsettled feeling for a couple of days before we went on this scramble that I just couldn't shake. And we started up this particular slope, and this is the Rocky Mountains. So the Rocky Mountains they have a lot of rocks on them, and the rocks aren't all attached.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we have this series of little cliffs and loose rock. And the thing is when you're on loose rock, you slide sometimes, and there might be a little cliff below you, or it might be a big cliff. And of course, when you're going up, if you climb up a little cliff and it's free climbing and it's not hard, it's handholds there. Once you get up, you're above that particular cliff. And so we did one little pitch. It might have been 10 feet. Now I'm above this. All I can see is tricky stuff every direction. And I don't want to be where I am, and I don't want to keep going. And one of the guys that I was with was trying to find like a better way, maybe up and maybe down, but he had to cross these tricky spots as he did that.
Sure.
And I'm kind of evaluating the risk of doing one and then another one, and at some point you might slip. And I knew if I went back down the same way, that I'd be on solid ground pretty quick, but I also had to go down that way. And I wasn't happy about that either. And so the guy that I was right next to is a young guy. He's a big guy. And he said, I'm not sure that you'll be able to reach that one foothold, but I know I can. So I'll go first and then I'll talk you through it. So he went down, I went down. 45 seconds, I'm sure, was all it took to get down there. And then I was totally solid. So above it, I was stuck. And everything I could do was hard. But I did one hard thing and then it was good. And I had a great day after that. And it didn't include continuing to go up either, by the way.
That's great.
So
you know how
one of the things, yes, I know you do. One of the things that keeps us stuck then is when we get a clear idea of what we have to do to get out of it, and it looks hard. And so one of the things that we could learn from that is let's embrace the hardness of being stuck to the point where we're not going to put up with it anymore. And I would say that is in a organization that's probably harder to work through than as an individual.
That's profound. That's that it is possible, more possible probably for an individual to change than it is an organization, just because you have so many collective drones.
Yeah, and so many people can like drag it down and say no.
Yeah, and because they're safe on that ledge, they see danger everywhere else. But I know I'm safe here.
Right. Yeah. As fun as that is to know you're not going to spend the night there. Like I was okay for a little while. Yes.
Yeah.
And so and that's of course related to the why we put up with things is because I know the hard that I'm dealing with and the hard that I got to work through. I'm worried about that. So I'll stay with the hard that I know. Yeah.
Okay. So we've dealt a little bit about getting unstuck. I feel like the time is just zipping by. I wonder if you would allow me to come back another time and we can talk further about this, because I'm not done.
Yeah, I'm not either. And I know, let me just see if there's one more that I could. Oh yes, there's one that I want to cover on this one. And then let's pick this up in in a bit here. One of the other reasons that organizations get stuck is because they forget that the people they work with are individuals, are real people.
Yeah.
And they treat them like objects. And so therefore you make an assumption that you can redraw something on an organization chart or set up a policy or declare some strategy or something like that. And then people will just like automatically respond in exactly the way you want. When in reality, all those people in that organization each have their own set of like personal objectives and their own standards and their own habits and their own ways of doing things. And it's super inconvenient to have people like that in your organization.
But that's why you want them all to stop being individuals?
Yeah, it's just easier if you can say from now on, people will do it this way.
Okay.
And I think one of the things the pandemic has showed us is if you let people go home and work from home, they can surprise you. And then when you try and bring them back, it's
they
tricky.
Can surprise you again.
It's tricky, right?
Of course it is. Of course.
It's tricky. And so it's just this, real inconvenience that these people where you want their brilliance and their professionalism and their creativity, they come with a human spirit as well. And so that's a interesting way to think that you're stuck, is because you've got everything figured out but the people.
Man. Derek, it's always a pleasure talking to you. I have so enjoyed coming back into the studio with you. I really appreciate it. Derek, where can they find you?
Find me at getunconstrained.com.
Good.
And also, when you're on the podcast, check out the links to the show notes. That'll put you on the Essential Dynamics Wiki, and there's lots of material there.
Folks listening at home and in your cars and in your businesses, consider your quest.